Yes, you can start.
Okay.
Bismillah.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil mursaleen. Sayyidina Muhammadi wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een. All praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and peace and blessings upon our leader, our mentor, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Welcome to all of you, our esteemed panelists, Hafiz Faisal Kasam from Malawi, Sheikh Muhammad Isa from Tanzania, and Brother Zafar Ahmed from South Africa. We were still waiting for the brothers Idris Monzwe from Zambia and Mufti Shoaib Asali from Zimbabwe. We don't know, are they in the participants yet or not yet? I see they're not yet here. But just by way of introduction, so as you know, Southern Africa has got many countries. We've got other countries that are not included here: Swaziland, Lesotho, Botswana, Mozambique, Angola, Namibia. So quite a number of countries that there are small countries but important countries that we should be talking to as well. But unfortunately, there is a problem with communications, and also we didn't need to have too many countries at this particular juncture, although all of them are Southern African. In fact, even Madagascar and Mauritius belong to this SADC countries, South African Development Community countries. So the countries that have large Muslim populations, and we'll hear from Hafiz Faisal Kasam, who will be our first speaker. He would be able to tell us about the Muslim population in Malawi, and then also the other country that has got a sizable Muslim population is Mozambique. All the other countries, I think, have very, very small Muslim populations. So what we're going to do also is, just so that all the speakers know how we're going to run the program, each one will have initially about 3 to 4 minutes just to talk about the introduction, about the rules and regulations and laws around Waqf and establishment of Waqf properties in those countries. So each speaker will just speak on that topic in the first 3 to 4 minutes. Thereafter, we will go to the issues around investment and other Waqf assets that are in those countries. After that, the last 3 to 5 minutes, each one will, again, in the same order, we'll have the discussion around the challenges facing Muslim communities in those countries regarding Waqf in particular. Okay, so without much ado, I just want to introduce Brother Hafiz Faisal Kasam, who's a very prominent Muslim leader and activist, social activist and philanthropist, businessman in Malawi, has been doing exceptionally good work there. So without much ado, would like to welcome Brother Faisal, and he would do the first presentation. Jazakallah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, nahmaduhu wa nusalli ala rasulil kareem. Amma ba'd. My respected brothers, for me this is something new. I not normally attend these type of Zoom meetings and all that, so please excuse me if there's any hiccups that I do, but I'll try my best, inshallah, to make a presentation. As Brother Zainul has said, that I need to speak about the laws of Waqf. Maybe we can go to my presentation, because my points are on my presentation that I can discuss. Is that okay, Brother Zainul? If I can.
Yes, please do.
Yes. Okay. All right.
There we go.
Okay. I'll just start with what is Waqf. I'm sure we all know what that is, but just as an introduction, The endowment is a special kind of charitable philanthropic deed which involves donating a fixed asset for purpose of producing a financial return or provide a benefit to the beneficiary. A charitable trust usually holds the donated assets for the benefit of some well-defined beneficiaries. The revenue or benefits generated from the property then serves specific categories of beneficiaries. In Malawi, most endowments are managed through trusts that are regulated by acts of parliament and case law. The second slide, the laws that regulate Waqf include the Trustees Act, the Trustees Incorporation Act, the NGO Act for private trusts. And in Malawi, for a trust to be considered as a charitable trust, it should be established to enhance any of the following: relief of poverty, advancement of education, advancement of religion, advancement of other purposes beneficial to the community. Since trusts are essentially non-profit making, it follows that gifts for charitable purposes also enjoy a substantial tax advantages, in that is an income tax. Section 4 of the Trustees Act permits trustees to invest any property in their hands in any manner and may also from time to time vary any such investments. The investments can be in the form of real estate, treasury bills, shares, bonds, and other securities issued for public trading in Malawi. The law demands that the trust property must solely be held for the benefit of the trust beneficiaries, not the trustees. So as Brother Zainul said, this is just the first, the laws regulating trust Waqf in Malawi. Malawi is, according to us, the Muslim community, we've got about 40% Muslims in the country, although the official figures is about 12 to 13%, but there's a lot of disguise of Muslims in the country. People disguise their identities for various reasons. So, but we are quite confident that we're at least at 40% of a population of about now 18, 19 million in the country, that 40% are Muslims. And also, like Brother Zainul said in his introduction, that other countries besides Mozambique have got smaller numbers of Muslims. The Muslims even in those countries are essentially from Malawi. You'll find a lot of Muslims in South Africa and in Botswana and other countries, their roots are in Malawi. So Malawi has got a sizable Muslim population, and the laws are mostly not in line with Islamic endowments or like that, but it follows the British law. Most of the laws that are followed according, because Malawi it was a British colony. So with these opening remarks, I think I will close there.
Okay, Jazakallah khairan, Brother Faisal. We will have a question and answer session later on. One of the issues that I would like to talk about is the tax rates and so forth. So when we come to that, we can discuss it. I'd like to invite the next speaker, who's Sheikh Muhammad Isa, who is also a member of the OCAF Tanzania, which has been recently established. He's a board member of OCAF Tanzania, and as we all know, that Tanzania also has got a sizable Muslim population, with Zanzibar being part of Tanzania, and amazingly, Zanzibar has got its own in its own territory, has its own Waqf laws, and we have had a webinar previously just talking about Zanzibar. So this is probably the first time that we actually talking about Tanzania, and I'd like to welcome Sheikh Muhammad Isa on the panel. And just by the way, at the end we also have Professor Yusuf Dadu, who's a professor from the University of South Africa, who will be giving us comments on all the speakers that have given their presentations. So without much ado, then Sheikh Muhammad Isa, could you come forward, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Brother Zaino. I'd like to request the host to maybe share my screen, because here in my computer it's stuck somehow, so I'm not able to open it. If the brother can share the screen I sent to you, sorry, the presentation I sent to you.
Yes, you are now.
Yeah. Yeah, would you share it, please? I mean, share my presentation, please. Hello?
Dr.
Have you shared my
Mustafa?
presentation? Yeah. I'm asking Dr. Mustafa to share the presentation I sent to him because my computer is somehow stuck.
Is Dr. Mustafa, you are muted, I think. Okay, it's coming up.
Oh, yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah, will you go to the following screen, please? Yes. In Tanzania, as you have noted, Brother Zainu, the Zanzibar part of the Republic of Tanzania has got its own laws. But to the mainland, currently there is no law governing Awqaf in Tanzania specifically, say the laws governing Waqf. We are operating Awqaf under the probate and administration of estates law, which was revised in year 2002. Now, this law covers the estates of Islamic organizations and non-Islamic organizations. No specific law. It's a general law, and Tanzania being a secular country. So the administration of Waqf estates in Tanzania is provided for by Part 15 of the Act I've mentioned, which is section from 148 to section 158. Here it's just spoken just as normal estates, so no word Waqf is mentioned there. But in Zanzibar, they've got a specific law which governs. Will you return to the screen, please? Dr. Mustafa, will you go back?
Yeah.
And yes. The Zanzibar, there is a specific law which governs Awqaf. It's known as the Administration of Waqf and Trust Property. It's Act number 2, which was revised in year 2007. Now, the Zanzibar political situation is the one which brings this difference, because Zanzibar was under the Sultanate of Oman, and all these laws were applicable when the British were there in Zanzibar somehow, managing Zanzibar through the Sultanate. But then they managed it to remain with Islamic environment, and therefore this specific law was put there. Now, the bodies and entities which are managing Waqf, currently we have a known number of bodies, but there are many Awqaf in Tanzania. Tanzania having 55 million people, and Muslim being the majority, although the government statistics does not show. That shows we are 30%, but we are in 1967, we were 62%. There's no way that we have dropped down to 30%. Maybe a Holocaust happened, but that's not an issue. Anyway, so Awqaf Tanzania has been newly formed in 2019, and currently we are trying to register various Waqf bodies, to know their properties, to know their assets. And we talked with the Fintera of Malaysia so that we can begin even cash Waqf also. But as it stands, we don't have Waqf Commission. Only in Zanzibar there is Waqf Commission and Waqf Commissioner, so they can put the records straight. Here we don't have even the proper records of our Awqaf. I think I have to stop up here in this part of the conversation.
Okay, Jazakallah khairan, Sheikh Muhammad. Thank you for that. Can we go on to Brother Idris Muwana Monzwe from Zambia? Brother Idris is the principal of the Makeni Islamic Center, which is a very popular Islamic center in Zambia, in Lusaka. And we've been in contact with Zambia for many years through Brother Rashid Limbada, who's been a very close friend. He's ex-South African, by the way, so inshallah we'd like to hear from Brother Idris about Awqaf in Zambia. Over to you.
A'udhu billahi minash-shaytanir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. First and foremost, may I thank Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us this opportunity to participate on this conversation with the brothers, and I'd like to thank the organizers as well for according us this opportunity so that we can be part of this one where we can share and learn. Basically, talking about the Awqaf in Zambia, may I just, right from the onset, indicate that the Waqf itself, it is not Western, it is actually Islamic in nature. But then suffice to mention that when we are dealing with matters of Awqaf or Waqfs, it is very necessary to look at how best you can bring it in the context of the current laws that are prevailing in Zambia. Now, the Awqaf in the Zambian context, it is governed by the laws under trust. We do not have the laws that look at the Awqaf as in the sense of Islam, because Zambia, it is governed by the secular laws. And in this case, when we talk about the Awqaf, because of its nature, it is an endowment, it is a dedication of property meant to benefit the beneficiaries. Of course, it is to be administered by a group of people, a person who are trustees. Now, in this case, it shares the same vision, the same concept as the trust, and hence we may safely put it under the trust. Now, under the trust, when we talk about the legal provisions of the creation and the regulations of the Awqaf under trust, the trusts in Zambia are provided for by Chapter 186, that is Article 2 of the laws of Zambia, which provides for perpetual succession to land and to provide matters incidental thereto or connected therewith. And may I be allowed to just quote one of the provisions under Section 2 of the same chapter. Trustees or trustee may be appointed by any community of persons bound together by custom, religion, kinship, or nationality, or by any body or association or persons established by religious, educational, literary, scientific, social, charitable purposes. Now, when you look at or you hear about this, it gives us a sense in which we are now able to bring now the Awqaf concept into the trust, because of the fact that the essence is to benefit the beneficiaries in the line of religion, that is religious and education. And further, it goes on to say, for any purpose which, in the opinion of the minister, is for the benefit or welfare of the inhabitants of Zambia, or any part thereof, or such trustees or trustee may apply in the matter therein after mentioned. So I think in a nutshell, once you have this vision of trying to benefit people by setting up an endowment or a dedication, which is for perpetuity in nature, then you can apply to the ministry, in this case, the Ministry of Home Affairs under the Ministry of Home Affairs under the Societies Act, and then you'll be therefore provided for with a certificate of incorporation. Then you're going to be considered to be a body corporate. And in this case, once you meet these conditions, you'll be given a certificate which will read as follows. In the case of Makeni Islamic, goes as follows. This is to certify that the trustees of Makeni Islamic Society Trust Fund have been registered as a corporate body under the name of Makeni Islamic Society Trust Fund, registered trustees in pursuance and under the provisions of the Land Perpetual Succession Act, that is Chapter 186. So basically, in a nutshell, when we're talking about the laws that govern the trustees in Zambia, so the Awqafs in Zambia, we cannot get in such law apart from using the existing law which govern the trustees. And further on, there are also other provisions of the law which may not particularly talk about the public, so the awqafs, because of the nature of the entities of awqaf are public entities. But these laws, as we have them, we have got the administration of assets, which is the Trust Corporation, and we have got also Trust Restrictions Act, Chapter 63 of the laws of Zambia. These, they deal in some sense with the trusts, but now they deal with the trusts which have to do with the family, which are private in nature. But when we talk about awqaf or waqfs, the law in Zambia which govern them, which regulate them, since they are of public in nature, they fall under the Land Succession Act, is Chapter 186. And then apart from being governed by the Land Succession, Perpetual Succession Act, we have also other laws that do provide for certain benefits due to existence of the same waqf. When you look at the Societies Act, Chapter 119 of the laws of Zambia, it is one kind of a law or legislation, piece of legislation, which provides for certain benefits. For instance, there is a benefit that we enjoy by existing as a trust. We have got non-registration or exempt from registration. Under normal circumstances, every organization that is registered under the Societies Act is supposed to be generating the returns every year, and there is also a fee that is attached to it. But then, in our case, we enjoy that privilege of non-registration. Now we are actually exempted from registration every year, renewals. We don't submit the returns, and as such, we are recognized through a certificate, and the certificate reads as follows: I hereby certify that Makeni Islamic Society Trust has this day been exempted by me, meaning the minister, who is empowered by the laws of Zambia to exempt us, with approval of the permanent secretary, from registration under Section 72A of the Societies Act. This exemption is liable to rescission at any given time. So basically, when we're talking about the laws governing the awqafs in Zambia, we do not have a specific law. We tend to ride on the already existing laws, which are secular in nature. But then the beauty about it is that the same vision. The trust is, if you look at what they intend to achieve, is the same vision that the awqafs intend to vision. They've got the same platform.
Okay. Okay. Are you done there? Jazakallah khairan. I think that seems to be a very common thread in all former British colonies, that we are all using trust law. Okay, Jazakallah, Sheikh Idris. We now go on to Brother Zafar Ahmed from South Africa. Zafar Ahmed is principal of the Al-Falah College in Durban. He's also the Deputy CEO of OCAF South Africa. Welcome, Brother Zafar. And I'd also like to welcome all the other attendees that have joined us today. Welcome to all of you as well. Over to you, Zafar. We can't hear you yet, Zafar. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Is my screen on?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
You can see, yes.
Okay. Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's an absolute pleasure to be here this afternoon with all the esteemed guests on this panel. And it's a pleasure to represent OCAF South Africa on this panel. All praise due to Allah, Lord of the worlds, Master of the Day of Judgment. To Him is our ultimate return. Our churches, durood, salam, and salutations on the best of Allah's creation, our beloved Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Very quickly, if I could just sketch a context for South Africa. Beautiful country on the top of Africa. We had our freedom 1994 with the release of Nelson Mandela. Prior to that, we are, as Zainu said, part of the British colony. Actually, we've been colonized before that, under occupation since 1652. And over the time, we've had different occupiers, but we've achieved our democracy very late, and we're enjoying the fruits of that. As far as our overall population, we are about a population of 55 million. However, that's just the official statistics from the department, from the government. We believe there's any number of undocumented or people that are in the country without the proper documents to fully understand the impact and the number of people in the country. Again, based on the state records, which we believe are understated, Muslim community makes up about 2 or 3% of the entire South African community, about 1.5 million rands. Made up of various communities. There's a very established community that arrived here in the 1800s. Sometimes some Muslims arrived in South Africa in the 1600s from Malaysia and Indonesian islands for different reasons. Others arrived later on in the 1800s from India, Pakistan, in that part of the world. And now we've got a huge immigrant community from up in Africa, large numbers of Muslims, alhamdulillah. The Muslim community is fairly well established with good infrastructure for masajid, madrasas, Islamic schools, good business opportunities for the Muslim community by and large, alhamdulillah. Closer to the Awqaf side of things, up to the year about 2000, there were many waqafs and awqafs in existence. These were many private awqafs, but there was no community-based organization that was dedicated to waqaf. Until this organization, Awqaf South Africa itself, was established, which became a community-based. It became a single entity to harness the waqaf and manage waqafs in South Africa. So in South Africa, as I said, we have some very old waqafs that go back to 1700s, and I'll talk about that a little later. But most of the waqafs are owned by private families or by Muslim organizations and communities. For example, in a particular suburb, communities would have got together, created a waqaf and established a masajid or a madrasa with it. So there are many of those that exist. And Awqaf South Africa was formed as an organization in 2001, and it became the Sovereign Community Fund, where small contributions from large numbers of the community could be harnessed into a single community that would coordinate the efforts or waqaf activities on behalf of the Muslim community in South Africa. In terms of the laws which regulate waqaf in South Africa, as Zainu again correctly pointed out, I think we all come from the same colonial past, and there's still a large influence of British Roman law in all of our statutory bylaws. And so in South Africa too, there's no specific law designed for waqaf. However, we use 3 pieces of legislation or law that allow us to create a waqaf, and that's the Trust Property Control Act, Association Not for Gain, and Non-Profit Company. Now, all of these vehicles have advantages and disadvantages depending on the level of control you want, and each one has a different level of statutory requirements and protocols that need to be observed. All of them have some level of tax exemptions, provided you meet certain requirements. And they're very receptive if the waqaf or the trust is for public benefit. In which case you get an additional certificate called a PBO, or Public Benefit Organization. So in summary, this is a summary of what happens in South Africa.
Can we ask Sheikh Sami Salah or somebody there?
In addition, We look at the Sharia and international standards. Sorry, Zainu.
No, there's somebody's microphone is on, so it's actually bringing in some sound, unwanted sound.
Jazakallah. Just very quickly in conclusion, as I said to you, there are many private waqfs. Awqaf South Africa as an organization was registered in 2001 to become the sovereign fund for the community that would harness the contributions and would take care of charitable endowments in the organization. So we actively establish not only our own waqfs and awqaf, but also promote the establishment of awqaf to be managed by other people in the community, alhamdulillah. So we've been very active in that. And the main vision and mission is advocacy and education amongst the broader community to mobilize and manage waqf funds in South Africa. We run and also support projects and programs organized by other communities. And we see ourselves as a voluntary community service organization trying to make a contribution to the community in South Africa, Muslim and non-Muslim. Jazakallah, I'll stop here.
Okay, Jazakallah. Thank you, Zafar, for that enlightening presentation on Awqaf South Africa. I will now call upon Mufti Shuaib Asali from Zimbabwe, also a neighboring country to South Africa. And while we're at it, I'd just like to give a special welcome also to Dr. Abdul Halim Zaidan, who's also part of our attendees. And maybe later, I'd like Dr. Zaidan to also give a comment on what he's just been hearing here with us today, inshallah. Okay, so Brother Shuaib Asali, if you can, the floor is yours.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you.
Okay. Alhamdulillah wahda wa salatu ala man la nabiyya ba'da wa ba'd. I think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us all this opportunity to gather on this important discussion of a very important aspect of Islam, which is waqf. And I thank all the panelists for being here with us and everyone who have made this possible. So I will talk of the laws governing waqf organizations in Zimbabwe. As has been previously said, Zimbabwe was a British colony and we got our independence in 1980. We've got a population of about 15 million people. And there are no official statistics of how many Muslims are there, but an estimate of 3% has been given. But this has been given for a long time now. I think we are now a bit more than that, more than 3%. But in terms of the laws governing waqf, obviously we are not a Muslim country, and waqf, there's no specific law for waqf in the country. So waqf can be registered under one of the following instruments. One, you can register it as a trust organization. So that's where you go to a lawyer who helps you in registering, and then you draft your own constitution and the laws that you have to follow in that trust. You know, who is the administrator, you know, so the Nadhir Waqf, and so on, and how are you supposed to operate. And the other, this is the easier way. If you want to get things done as soon as possible, you go the trust way. The other way is a private voluntary organization. So there's a specific law for this, and it takes a bit of time because the board that approves organizations which want to register under this type of organization meets about twice a year. So it's a bit cumbersome. If you want to get things done, maybe you may first register as a trust. Then later on, if you want to benefit from being a private voluntary organization, then you can apply for registration at a later stage. So this is in summary pertaining to the registration of the waqf in Zimbabwe. So I think as far as that is concerned, I'll stop there, and inshallah I'll be following the proceedings, and I'll be ready to contribute on the other parts of the presentation, inshallah.
Okay, Jazakallah khairan, Mufti Shuaib. I think you've really kept up time there. Just in 2 minutes, you made that short presentation. and thank you so much. Okay, now we're going to go on to the next segment of this webinar, where we're going to actually be looking at what sort of investments and what sort of assets do you in your particular country have, and what sort of income are you getting out of those assets. So over to Brother Faisal Qasem from Malawi. So we'll go in the same order: Faisal, then Sheikh Mohammed Isa, Idris Mowana Monzwe, Zafar, and then Mufti Shuaib Asali. Can we start with Brother Faisal there? Hafiz Faisal from Malawi.
Hope you can hear me, brothers.
Okay. Yes, we can hear you, and we can see your screen.
Yes, welcome to the brothers who have just joined us. Alhamdulillah. Nice to meeting you, brothers. My Aisha is the trust that we run. It's a family trust, but we're doing a lot of work in partnership with a lot of other organizations in the country. And we have got our own investments in Waqf in Malawi. So we'll just go onto that. 1 second. My browsers are stuck here. Okay. Okay. So in Malawi, the law does not limit the value of the trust property. The Constitution under Section 28 guarantees everyone right to property. Therefore, the government cannot limit property value of one can possess. And then we go to the next. As my Aisha, as a family trust, we have invested about $7.2 million in real estate in Waqf, and the investments are solely for the benefit of the trust beneficiaries. Currently, the revenue which the trust is generating from Waqf to serve the specific categories of beneficiaries is about $340,000 a year. My Aisha works in various projects. We're in health, we're in education, we're in food security, we're in empowering people, especially the women folk. So we work in partnership with all the organizations. We try to avoid duplication of efforts. If one organization is doing a certain type of work, we would like to support them in that type of work if they need our support. And as my Aisha, we're running our own orphanage and schools and various other projects. So my Aisha's investments are $7.2 million, and we've got an income of $340,000. Generally, in Malawi, like us, like my Aisha, there are other organizations that are also privately doing the investments. But personally, I don't think they have registered their trust and have registered their properties under the trust to generate income. I'm not aware of any organization at a private level, because there's a lot of people like ourselves who have got a lot of charities taking place in Malawi, but I'm not aware of any organization that is doing that. But I know at the community level, our Jamaats, our Muslim organizations in Blantyre, in Lilongwe, they own properties that generate income that are in Waqf for the benefit of the community. The trust, the last point on the screen, the last point is the trust has been working on a multi-story building Waqf project with Islamic Development Bank, which is yet to start. The proposed value is about $5 million. We've earmarked a very nice spot in the city of Lilongwe, in the city center. We've been talking to the Islamic Development Bank. Actually, we have signed off with them, but we have not got to the point of starting the project. One of the requirements the IDB wanted was the collateral. And we did not have enough properties to provide for them as a collateral, because it's a loan over 15 years. But now we've recently agreed with them that they are ready to take the same property which we are building on as the collateral. So now we just got to sort of tweaking the final contract, and inshallah we're hoping that sometime in the course of this year we will be embarking on this project. I think that's all for the investments we've got in Malawi.
Okay, Jazakallah. That's quite an amazing presentation you've given us for one organization to have those kind of assets already. I think it's really fantastic, and also the kind of revenue that you're generating, alhamdulillah. Okay, could we go to the next speaker, Muhammad Isa, Sheikh Muhammad Isa from Tanzania? Sheikh Muhammad Isa, you on mute, Sheikh Muhammad. Are we having a problem there, or what's happening? Sheikh Muhammad Isa, we can't hear you, you're on mute.
Now
Okay.
clear?
Yes, much better.
Okay. Let me share my screen. Just a bit. Yeah, here we are. Yes, as brother has spoken there, as far as Tanzania is concerned, the assets brother, have you given me the co-host? I want to share the screen, please.
Yes, you are the co-host now.
I'm the co-host now. Is the screen clear there?
It hasn't come up yet, but yes, okay, good.
Yeah. So our curves in Tanzania, in terms of monetary value, we have not yet been established as far as our CAF Tanzania is concerned. And the reason, as I've said, is that we had no organization which was governing the whole of our CAF. We have many CAFs in Tanzania. We have masajid, mosques, we have madrasas, we have dispensaries, we have orphanage centers, we have schools, pre-primary school, secondary school, A-level, up to colleges and universities. We have large tracts of land, and we have buildings which have been donated as waqf by Muslims across all over the country, I mean Tanzania mainland. The picture there you can see is one of the most famous mosques in Dar es Salaam, Jamia Mosque, which is run by the Yemenites. The Yemen community in Tanzania is very active and has been active so long before even the colonial period. Now, this particular mosque is of interesting because they began to invest. They have got buildings also apart from mosques. So they are investing the buildings, renting them, and they are generating. I was talking with their secretary, 400,000 they begin the first year. 400,000. It's a small amount, but it showed the way because many of the masajids, CAF organizations, they are not investing into the properties they have. So how much do we invest, as I've said, in monetary reform? We cannot, but it's billions of money because we've got a large number of schools and large number of madrasas. So how much we yield, it is not known yet. But as you can see here, the Waqf assets, many are run by family. So it is Waqf Ahali, most of them. The mosques are built by individuals and the madrasas are run by individuals and they continue to be. So it's a traditional way which has been in Tanzania. But there are now Muslim organizations registered as trusts and they run many awqafs. Masajids by total, we got almost 12,000 plus. And we have madrasas of 5,500 plus. Schools, we got 200 plus number of schools. The educational colleges, we've got 6. In the College of Health, we have got 1. And the orphanage centers, we have over 30 of them. Now look here to the right, example, one organization. Brother Zenu, you know this, the Islamic Foundation. In year 2020, they had 3 primary schools. They got pre-primary schools, I mean. They got primary schools, 2 of them. Secondary schools, 2. They are building a 3rd one now. They've got dispensaries, they have 2 dispensaries. In media, this is the largest media is run by as WACF. They've got radio station, that is Iman Radio FM. They got newspaper, Iman newspaper. They got TV, which is very famous now in South Africa and Africa across, TV Iman. This is one organization, but there are other organizations with radio stations like the Nureid. There is Ansar Muslim Youth in Tanga. There is in Mwanza also. Total number of orphans in this organization only is 712. This is 2020 statistics. They dug water wells, shallow and deep water wells, as WACF, 2,550. They've got massage built by donations from various organizations across the world, which are as WACF, 510. Madrasas, they got 136 madrasas. So this is one organization. If we replicate to a number of organizations, we've got 52 registered now organization and Awqaf Tanzania. We are going slowly to learn this, and we have very big potential. I can assure you it may be more than South Africa if we reveal all of it, the value. For example, tract of land, there are unutilized land as WACF. That's why we are trying to organize this cash WACF so that we can invest into these lands and generate funds for the service of the community as a whole. This is what I can say as far as assets in Tanzania, WACF assets are concerned. Thank you very much.
Okay, Jazakallah, thank you. That was really, you comparing Tanzania to South Africa. I know
Sure.
it's going to be, it's beyond compare already. Look, you've got 12,000
Inshallah, we can catch up. We can catch up with you. We can catch up with you, inshallah.
No, you are far ahead. You are very, very much advanced. You've got really an amazing number of assets, and perhaps one of the things you haven't mentioned is that you've also got the Aga Khan community in Tanzania, in Dar es Salaam, that have put up major hospitals and
Yes, the Sunni mosques, they've got buildings across Dar es Salaam, and all of them need to be invested. Yeah.
So you have been really blessed with a lot of Waqf assets, alhamdulillah. Jazakallah for that, Sheikh Mohammed. It was very enlightening and very impressive for Awqaf Tanzania, alhamdulillah. We could go to Sheikh Idris Monzwe from Zambia. I hope I'm pronouncing the surname correctly, Mwana Monzwe.
Jazakumullah. Perfect. The pronunciation is very perfect, just like it is yours.
Okay,
once again to have me on the platform. And coming back to the issue of the WACFs, we have got so many WACF projects in Zambia, but I would like to narrow the discussion to Makeni Islamic Society Trust, where we have got a number, at least some facts to present. We've got 2 types of Awqafs. We've got the income generating and the non-income generating. Now, under the income generating, we have got some tracts of land. We've got land which we hire out for agricultural purposes. At least the value of the land is about $20,000. In terms of rentals, there's a department that deals in that. I wouldn't be in position to give out the actual figures of the rentals that we do get from the hiring out. But that is one of the WACF projects that we have. We've got some houses for rent as well, which from which we are able to generate some monies. And the total value of the same houses is $50,000. We have a sports complex which has a 5-a-side AstroTurf, and we do give it out in terms of hiring out on an hourly basis, and we do also get a little bit of some revenue out of that. It's part of the work of a project. We've got a clinic which attends to about 50 people, patients a day, which can be maybe in a month. We are talking about on 60 days of the working days in a month. You're talking about close to 1,500 patients that are attended to. It is also part of work projects. And on the other aspect of the non-income generating work, we've got the mosque. The society, our Makeni Islamic Society Trust, is running a number of mosques within Zambia, about 6 of them in different provinces. And those masajids, they are also running madrasas. They are also part of the work of projects. Of course, we don't realize anything from there. We have got schools where we are currently here at Makeni Islamic Schools Society Trust. We are running the main stay of activities that we are offering is education. And we are running education right from preschool all the way up to College of Education. And we are just about to start offering a degree program. The process is underway. We've just registered with the Ministry of Higher Education under the Higher Education Authorities. And we've had one inspection, and we are waiting to be given the approval. These are some of the OCAF, and of course, like I mentioned, there's a distinction because these are non-income generating. We are also involved in the sinking of the boreholes in a number of provinces, and I think in a nutshell, these are a few projects that we are running. If I'm to put them in.
So you don't have any income generating investments?
We do have, like I mentioned, we have got agricultural land which is on hire. We do realize some income from there. We have got houses for rent. We do realize some income from there. We've got an AstroTurf which also generate some income. We have got a clinic, it does generate some income. And basically, these are the aspects. When we talk about income generating, these are the ones that we can say we do recover or generate some income. But the majority of our work of projects, they are non-income generating, whereby for them to be able to operate, we've got to lobby, we've got to source some funds from well-wishers through donations.
Okay. Jazakallah, Sheikh Idris, for that. We'll go on to our next speaker, Zafar Ahmed from South Africa.
Jazakallah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh again. In terms of the work of assets, the South African context, as we said earlier, the individual, family, and organizational waqfs, and then there's OCAF South Africa, which is the South African Sovereign Fund. So between the two, family waqfs, private waqfs, Islamic organizational waqfs, and the OCAF properties and investment and assets, they fall into two categories. One is fixed property, like everybody else said, masajid, Islamic schools, makatib, etc. And the second, income generating waqfs, profits which are used for downstream projects and initiatives. So this is a graph that just shows, again, we don't know what the cumulative value of all the OCAF in South Africa are worth, because many of them are in the hands of private individuals or private organizations, and there's no register anywhere that collates the total value. But my guess is it could run into millions, if not billions of rands worth of assets in South Africa. Awqaf South Africa, which is the sovereign fund and the organization community-based, we've grown from the time we started in 2001, and we have close to 100 million rands worth of assets in our investments at the moment. And all of those funds are in different awqaf. So there's an awqaf for education, for healthcare, Hajj, all of these are just some. There are many other designated awqaf. Now, Awqaf South Africa doesn't actually get involved in education. We don't own any schools. Ours is to use the funds that we have to generate income and support other organizations that are in education or healthcare or Quran, etc. So our focus has been more to grow the capital base, to invest the funds, generate income, and then spend on what we call downstream spend. And these are the key areas in which we use our funds to support community development. These are some of the projects we would have funded out of the investments and our assets. Awqaf South Africa itself, with about 100 million rand under its control, would invest in factories, mainly fixed property, retail, malls, shopping malls, office parks, student accommodation, some residential complex. Another aspect of our investment strategy is to invest in real estate, which we own 100%. Sometimes before we get into a consortium with other organizations where we own part of the real estate, anything between 20 and 40% of the ownership. And then the third element is we invest cash directly in equity. We become shareholders in businesses or unit trusts that generate income. These are some of the pictures of some of the properties that Awqaf South Africa may own completely, or we may be part of a consortium with other investors where we own property. This, for example, is our head office in Johannesburg, which is also an Awqaf building. This is a property in Cape Town where we have apartments that are rented out and generate income. So these are some of the properties. This is an elder's home, which we support as well, old age home in the Lenasia area. I said earlier, Awqaf goes back a long way. The first known Awqaf building in South Africa was in 1794, when a piece of land was given as Awqaf, a waqf, and till today the masjid stands in Cape Town, and it's called Awwal Masjid. There are also some very well-known and very large private waqfs, waqfs in South Africa. The Haji Ahmad Lokat Waqf, for example, established in 1933, a very large waqf. The Waterfall Islamic Institute, established in 1934, could be anybody's guess in terms of how many billion rands this particular single waqf is worth. And there's the Rustenburg Mosque Plaza. It's a shopping center attached to the Masjid Nurul Islam. The Jummah Masjid Trust in Durban was established in 1890. It's a masjid in a center surrounded by shops right in the center of the city. And then, of course, the National Awqaf Foundation of South Africa was established in 2001 as a sovereign fund. So I'll end it here, Zainu.
Okay, Jazakallah. Thank you, Zafar. Once again, thank you for all those insights and information. I must say that a lot of the collation of information is very, very difficult because there's no central organization that actually serves as a conduit for all the information. Let's go to Mufti Shoaib Asale from Zimbabwe. Let's hear from you, Jazakallah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Once again, I want to share information about investment types and yields. Well, in Zimbabwe, the information of waqf is not readily publicly available, because it's mainly organizational waqf. So it's not We don't have a national or a sovereign fund like in South Africa, where there's, you know, like a national work fund where you could have information. And also some major organizations do not have websites as we speak. So you know, or you may hear that there's some works, but you don't know the details. And of course, they are private things. You can't go and ask, you know, how much are your assets and so on. But however, we know that there are works in the form of property like madrasas, schools, and so forth. And there was one organization which was running a clinic. But in terms of figures, I wouldn't know how much the assets are worth, and also how much the yield or the returns from some of the investment type of works. So there, I'm sorry I couldn't do very much on that one.
Okay, Jazakallah khairan. Thank you. I know that it is very difficult to get information. I mean, even here in South Africa, it's difficult to get that kind of information. But nonetheless, I think we're going to our third segment, which is about the challenges that the Muslim communities face, particularly with regard to waqf and waqf knowledge or waqf awareness, etc. So let's go back to Brother Faisal Qassam from Malawi to tell us more about the challenges that they face in Malawi with regard to maybe mobilization, establishment of a community-based organization. Where do they get their resources from? Is it possible to get more from the public and so forth?
Assalamu alaikum. Once again, brothers, nice to be back with you. Okay, the challenges that we have, I'll read them out, then I'll elaborate a bit more on that. Although the charitable organization Malawi exempted from paying income tax, but the taxation law does not extend the exemption to waqf. The waqf money has got a deduction of almost 20%, which goes to the Malawi Revenue Authority as payment of withholding tax. And it also cripples our efforts, as that money could have been used in charitable work to benefit the poor. Despite the law exempting charitable organizations to pay income tax, the tax body still insists the waqf projects should pay tax to the extent that they will freeze your accounts if you are not complying. And I think it's the lack of knowledge generally, that the government authorities and the revenue authorities have about trusts that are there that have properties that are generating income for the benefit of the poor. So because of that lack of knowledge that they have, they sort of pound onto you when you have not sort of declared your taxes, because we are tax exempt. But because of the lack of knowledge, we've experienced it personally just last year that, they pounded on us and started claiming so many amounts of money from us. Obviously, we had to get the lawyers involved, and we managed to get, to put a stay on their claims. But it's just the lack of knowledge that the authorities have, which trickles down to our community also in Malawi, the general Muslim population, and especially the people who are in the businesses who are able to invest into charities and into waqf. They also lack the knowledge of what is waqf, right? And I think at this point I would invite, especially hearing Brother Zafar, that the amount of progress that you have done in South Africa at the national level, like, ourselves, we're an individual institution that's done it at a private level, but we've got the capacity, if we were to do it collectively as a country, to have a waqf, and then we would be able to even extend our sort of flex a bit of our muscle to the government authorities, because we're all good taxpayers, and say, look, we are doing all this, plowing back the income for the benefit of the poor. But I think it's got to be done at the national level, learning from the brothers from Tanzania, who've got it at the national level, and learning from the brothers from South Africa, who also have done it at the national level, that, we would sort of invite you to come and help us, pave the way forward for us, because it's interesting to know that how you've been able to manage to do it at the national level. So we have challenges, and it's all got to do with lack of knowledge at the higher authorities and lack of knowledge even in our own communities. I think the ulama in our communities also need to speak more about these topics from the mimbar on the Jummah, and generally, or general knowledge about it from different platforms. Jazakallah khairan. Assalamu alaikum.
Okay, Jazakallah, Faisal. We could go on to Sheikh Muhammad Isa from Tanzania. Challenges that you face. You're on mute. You still muted, Sheikh Muhammad.
Yes.
Right, okay.
As far as challenges are concerned, I hope the presentation is seen on the screen. Eh?
Yes.
The challenges, as far as challenges are concerned, first of all, as we have noted, and the brother Faisal also said, lack of CAF legal and regulatory frameworks. As far as the law, we say there's no law governing WAF, just as it in Tanzania mainland. But in Zanzibar, there is WAF law, there is WAF commission. Here, the WAF commission is mentioned in a law which was established in 1955 during the British colonialism, and whereby the president can choose the Waqf Commission and commissioners, but it has never been implemented. Why? We don't know. We've been asking and following up, but nothing has been done. I think there is fear that maybe if that commission is brought into work, it can organize the Awqaf, and we have many Awqaf, and the Muslim will be strong economically. So the lack of these Waqf legal and regulatory framework, so the Waqf properties, the effect of this is the Waqf properties are taxed. The land is taxed, the buildings are taxed. Even the schools we built as Waqf, they are taxed as well. So this is a challenge, and that's why we have formed Awqaf Tanzania, so that we can raise our voice for these various Waqf organizations and implement, and present it to the government. Maybe we can be heard. United, you are stronger. There is also lack of standards. Various Awqaf organizations in Tanzania, they do not even know there are Waqf standards, such as Sharia Waqf standards and accounting standard and governance of Waqf standards. They do not know. We will be organizing seminars to various Waqf organizations in order to make sure that they know there are standards, so that we can govern this Waqf across the country in the same manner. But now it's just someone with this family Waqf, they are managing it without knowing even the Sharia part of the management of our CAF. Another problem, challenge we're facing here is the knowledge gap, as the brother Faisal said. Firstly, many of the ulamas do not talk much about Waqf, so they do not impart the knowledge about Waqf. So the majority of Muslims do know nothing about Waqf. So the scholars need to change their perspective, and fiqh muamalat, Waqf is one of the part of fiqh muamalat. So it should be spoken in the mimbar or in our darsas, and we are trying to raise that awareness also. Another problem is our CAF management, lack of knowledge on our CAF management. The Waqifs and Mutawalis, they do not have management skills, even simple management skills for the assets and property. Investment skills also is almost absent. With the absence of sukuk in Tanzania, so organizations are not knowing where to invest, even if they have money, where to invest it. So it need to copy maybe our brothers in South Africa. They've invested their money even in factories. That is commendable, brothers and brothers in South Africa. Also, accounting knowledge for Awqaf. There are standards in IOFI standard only for the accounting of Awqaf properties. We need to get these standards and teach our people so that they can manage it properly. The lack of Awqaf management software also. We do not have Awqaf management software. We need to tell our young people with knowledge to make the management software for work so that it's going to be easy to manage these assets, and even in terms of fixed assets and even liquid assets. And there is also lack of information on work, on media, almost absent. Now with some of the medias we have here, we've begun to have some programs, on-air programs, in order to tell the people about Waqf, how to donate their Waqf, which are the conditions for the Waqf, and how to manage them. We are trying to go through Awqaf Tanzania, alhamdulillah. So these are some of the challenges we are facing.
Okay, Jazakallah. There seems to be a common thread with many of us with those kind of challenges. But inshallah, I think with your establishment of Awqaf Tanzania, one of the objectives will be, inshallah, the creation of awareness and knowledge. Okay, inshallah. And we'll always be holding hands with you,
Yes.
as we have done from the beginning, inshallah.
Yeah, we are very humbly thankful for Awqaf Tanzania, to Awqaf South Africa, to raise their hand to Awqaf Tanzania, alhamdulillah.
Ameen, Jazakallah. Sheikh Idris from Zambia, can we go on to you just to tell us about some...
Indeed, as we look at the challenges and the bottlenecks that are hampering the smooth administration of our Awqafs, I think may I also start by taking cognizance of the fact that as much as we have these challenges, I think the government of Zambia, despite not being Islamic, it's in its own little way, it has given us some kind of a leeway to enjoy certain privileges in terms of rebates. Because as long as we exist as a religious organization, just like any other religious organization, we do enjoy some kind of rebates, which is a benefit, and I would like to take cognizance and acknowledge that. And now getting back to the challenges themselves, it's like the previous brothers, they have spoken, and it seems to be a common challenge in terms of ignorance. We've got ignorance in the general Muslim populace regarding the Waqfs, the dynamics, how they are run, and the benefits that we can do accrue or get from the same investments, which of course it is premised on the ulama themselves to be able to enlighten the general public so that they get to understand, because some of these issues we cannot expect a person to be able to execute any kind of a service without being enlightened. So it is actually based on the knowledge that we have denied the Ummah. Once the Ummah is given the correct knowledge, we should be able to see many people coming on board and participating, and that will be, I think, a thing on the past. Then the other thing is some kind of a technical gap. When we look at our ulama and the professional brothers, there seems to be some kind of a dichotomy. The professionals, they are enlightened in the matters of, they have got expertise, whether it's in the investment policy, in most of these legislation that govern establishment, whether we are talking about the Awqaf of the school, it requires some form of knowledge for you to be able to establish a school. Establish, whether even sinking of a borehole, there's some legislation that govern the sinking of a borehole. Now we have some professionals that have got vast knowledge with regard to such kind of aspect of knowledge, but unfortunately, they do not willingly share with the ulama, who also intend they've got knowledge of the interpretation of the Awqaf from the Islamic point of view, who are not coming to share the kind of knowledge that they have, so that they can harness and create some kind of a synergy going forward, so that they can have one direction and achieve the common goal. That is one kind of challenge that we have, and we hope if these people can be brought together, which is our prayer and our dua, we should be able to get to harness the different forms of knowledge, what we have for the typical Islamic knowledge from the ulama, and the academic or professional knowledge harness together, we should be able to have some good steps going forward. Then the other one, of course, which is of course temporary, and that it has affected everybody, all the brothers around here. We talk about the COVID for this, the one almost 1.5 years now. We have had some challenges with regard to our operation, because we need to make a lot of movements to get to some donors, to get to establish some kind of commonness. But because of these restrictions that in place regarding some traveling and everything, I think this has put some kind of some challenges on us in getting to have some of the programs actualized. And further, we don't seem to have some separate AUCAF projects. We've got, just like I mentioned, we have got only one body in, I did mention of Makeni Islamic. We have got several dotted which are private, but in this case, when we talk about Makeni, we have got one administration that is looking at all these several AUCAFs. But if we had the separate AUCAF projects, which are run by different people according to their knowledge, forms of knowledge and the competencies, I feel we can handle them in a manner that can be more beneficial than just bundling everything under certain persons that might not be that enlightened or competent in the field. And maybe lastly on this point is probably I might just bring in the aspect of the fact that our countries were under colonial powers at one point. And if you look at the fight against the colonial rule, it was almost collective. I can quote or maybe refer to our South African brothers that we did host, even the president, the former president Mbeki, Zuma at one time they were in Zambia, because we had the common enemy. We were fighting the common colonial master. Now, in this regard, when we talk about this AUCAF, which is to do with the investment, you realize that some of our countries which have got minority Muslims, like Zambia in particular, we are only about 1% of the population. The overall population, it is 18 million, and we are just 1% of that population. When you talk about even the ability to raise monies for investment under WACF, it is quite limited. And as such, I hold the view that if we could be given a platform, if we could be welcomed by certain countries that are already established, they can try to extend a helping hand so that we can also, because it has been a trend for us to rush to the Arab countries. What about our countries like South Africa, that probably, or Tanzania, which might be more organized in terms of these AUCAFs? Can't we extend our plea for them to be, in terms of technical know-how, they can come help us to establish this work. In terms of financial, country-wise, of course, we may say we may be a little bit better, but as Muslims, because this is just a small population of our country, which might be wallowing in poverty, but for us to be able to realize anything realistic from this AUCAF, I think we needed to inject a little bit of some funding from some people that are already established. I think this is how I can put it.
You're going to have to stop there, and I'm going to ask the other two speakers to really be very, very quick, because we are running out of time, and we've still got our commenters to speak as well, and a Q&A. So Jazakallah for that, Sheikh Idris. And I'm sure that we would be, all these comments are being recorded, and I hope that our producers at the back there would be doing good summaries of all of these comments that are being made. Zafar, over to you. And after that, Mufti Shuaib Asali from Zimbabwe. If we can do as quickly as possible. Challenges that we're talking about in South Africa.
Again, I think a lot has been already said, and it's amazing the commonalities between all of our countries and the challenges we face. In fact, I haven't listed it here, but I could concur with the legislative frameworks within which awqafs operate in all of our countries could be improved if we lobby our respective governments. We could get more favorable conditions, save a bit on the tax and have more favorable conditions, which means we'll have more funds to put into our downstream projects, inshallah. I think people have already spoken about the lack of public awareness, the lack of understanding even among community leaders. Even the ulama are not promoting this enough. There aren't sufficient role models and good examples. Also, the mind shift from communities that they don't understand. They're happy to give perhaps 100 rand as a sadaqah or as a lillah, but it's used up. They don't understand that 100 rand into an awqaf or into a waqf, which is more sustainable, is a better choice to make. So I think even the mindset in the community needs to change. Of course, what we're looking at for the third decade in terms of the history of awqaf at South Africa is to build some capacity in the community, to collaborate more internationally on various aspects with more established awqaf in different countries, IT systems, donor relations, how you manage the awqaf and the systems, etc. I think we could all benefit from inter-awqaf exchanges, whether it's information, case study, best practice. And there's never enough training and advocacy and mobilizing all of our resources within our countries and even across our borders. We're trying in South Africa, for example, to bring waqf and the concept of awqaf into the school curriculum in Muslim schools, so that the generation are better informed in terms of what waqf is, and they grow up with this. And of course, this whole advocacy and education is a very critical part of awqaf's work in South Africa, because we believe the more people we can educate around waqf, the more sustainable and the stronger waqfs can become in the future, inshallah. I end it there, and I thank you all for giving me the opportunity to be part of this wonderful experience. Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam and jazakallah Zafar. Thank you again for that comprehensive overview on challenges. Mufti Shuaib, over to you.
Assalamu alaikum once again. So the challenges, I think they are common, and most of them have been spoken about. So I'll just run through them. Of course, the common one is lack of knowledge and information on waqf. Again, it's also an opportunity to provide information. And then maybe the major thing here in Zimbabwe could be the absence of a national waqf organization. Because we've got various organizations, we've got their different waqfs. If they could get all together and we have a common purpose, and everyone is involved, the ulama, the accounting, the scholars, the professionals, with one thing, I think we'll do much better. And then also we've got an issue of an inexperience among people in administering the waqf. So also this is solved by training. Again, another issue linked to ignorance or lack of knowledge is that relying on waqf among the rich only, thinking that waqf is only for the rich, because we've got several initiatives like cash waqf, which maybe a lot of people can afford, even the middle class people, the working class people can afford to donate some cash on a monthly basis for a project. And then also another thing is lack of what the Malaysian would call a nomadic type of mentality, which means people are just centered among themselves. So they don't think about the fellow brother, the fellow man. Well, I'm fine, me and my family are okay. But what about the fellow man who is suffering, who doesn't have anywhere to a house, doesn't have clothing, who doesn't have food? We've got to think about those people and also think of developing the ummah. We cannot say that because we're a minority, we just have to suffer and be underdeveloped. No, we've got to be strong. If you look, for example, in the Black Muslim community in Zimbabwe, in the whole country, I only knew of 2 Muslim doctors. Well, one died because of COVID, so there's only 1 Muslim doctor that I know in the whole country. So this is not something consistent with Islam, because if we're the waqf, then we would have, okay, say 1 students to study in the sciences, 1 doctors, 1 engineers, 1 accountants, and then Islam will be strong through the strength of the people in the religion, businessmen, and so on and so forth. So inshallah, this is my contribution. Shukran jazilan for having me, and stand by for the questions.
Okay, Jazakallah khairan. So I think because we all minorities and we have specific issues, let's hear from Professor Yusuf Dadu first, and then we'll invite Professor Dr. Zaidan to actually give his comments as well. So Professor Yusuf Dadu, may I please welcome you to the webinar and to give your comments.
Jazakallah khair. In terms of the presentations, I found them most impressive. They were to the point, particularly those that were backed up with slides and visual presentations that, of course, made it possible for the presentations to be much more structured. But that, of course, doesn't mean that those who came without that facility did not perform well at all. No, it's just that the structure was somehow better when you had this type of thing, you know, when you use this facility of having a PowerPoint presentation. The one interesting thing that I noticed, for which I don't blame anybody, but I suppose we need to think about this for the future, and that is that if we look at the history of Waqf, you know, everywhere, women have played a very prominent role. And somehow we need to get women involved in forums like this as well, because some of them happen to be among the greatest donors for Awqaf. And it's not really right if we simply leave Islam as a religion for mankind with man underlined, you know, ignore women totally. That, of course, is something that you could consider. A few general comments that I will make. Unfortunately, I think what we also need to look at is sometimes we have assets in Awqaf, but they are underutilized. Now, that's an issue that requires further investigation. Another thing, one of the solutions that we could have towards Waqf problems lies in appointing capable Waqf managers. This is very, very important because this will link up with what I have to say now, which is that if we have a controlling Waqf body with a Sharia board and an external body which would probe feasibility of investments, renting, maintenance, cropping, as well as internal organization with proper accounting, auditing, and financial analysis. That is what we require. Unfortunately, the idea is, among the problems that Awqaf face is that we, I say Muslims at large, we invest in these projects very much the way our forefathers did. Nothing more, nothing less. The way they gave, that's the way we do. But times have moved. There are, of course, new developments in the economic sector and so on, the banking sector. We need to understand these things and see how we can benefit from some of these things to improve our capacity as well as our ability to reach out to the people that we should. Then, of course, the limited scope. Unfortunately, that has been a problem. I'm particularly impressed here with Tanzania, which, despite your problems, you do seem to have a more diverse portfolio of assets. you know, the thing is, unfortunately, well, even in South Africa, Brother Zainul will be able to tell you much more. Well, of course, Awqaf South Africa is an exception. But if you look at most of the other Awqaf, the private ones, whether they be family or any other socially structured ones, they have a very limited focus. And Awqaf is not really, you know, Awqaf is supposed to open the doors to all sorts of legitimate contributions and investments. So that basically is what I have to say in terms of providing broad commentary. I'm particularly impressed with the research that all of you did. May Allah bless you and keep you well.
Jazakallah khair and barakallah fiqh, Professor, for your insights and your comments. Highly appreciated. If we can go on to Professor Zaidan. Professor Zaidan is I don't know how to introduce him, but I think one of the ways, in fact, just the other day, Dr. Tutunji spoke to me and he said, you know, you should get Dr. Zaidan as a consultant for Awqaf South Africa and for the Awqaf sector, because he was one of the original motivators and engineers of the Awqaf Kuwait, which has become a leading Awqaf organization in the world. So I think, and he's always participating in many of the Awqaf institutions. He also has very progressive ideas about how we should be moving beyond mosques and madrasas into more, you know, more, I would say, forward-looking, looking into the 21st and 22nd centuries for Waqf developments. So over to you, Dr. Zaidan. Jazakallah khairan for joining us, and we'd like to hear some of your comments.
Barakallahu feek. Many thanks for you and for Dr. Tutunji for his recommendation. I was really interested in listening to all these presentations at once, because it is hard to have all this community at one session and listening to different experiences and different scales regarding the laws and the current situations and all these. In fact, some of my points were covered by Professor Yusuf, so I will go to the other side. I think that we need to restore about our sessions about countries as we realize that many aspects are being common, as if they are the same, especially with countries coming out of same mandatory systems, like what happened today. Yani all of them are coming out of the British mandatory, and they have the same manipulation and the same use of legal side regarding trust. So I think to get more benefit of time and more benefit of experience, we should use one speaker to speak about, let's say, an introduction to the legal side and the most of the current situation side, and we leave the rest of the sessions to be emphasizing on two very important aspects: the challenges, which are the blocks against the future, and the future itself from a point of view of how can we develop more progressive and more serving works for our communities for the future. Speaking about the future doesn't require or doesn't repeat by default the same cases that we have already now, that, as you mentioned, mosques, madrasa, and cemeteries and all these. We should look at the future with the tens of other aspects that we are facing in the future, our communities are facing, and what are the coming needs, not the current needs. If we are always just fulfilling the current needs, we will be all the time running off resources and others. So we have to make a long-term planning, and made in this long-term planning a kind of many channels, a channel for how to emphasize the reconceptualization of Waqf, because we are all under a concept which is limited. We are all looking at the Waqf as it is religious, social. In fact, it is more economical, religious, social. It is a money-generating agent. It is a money-generating organization. It is under the law of Sharia, so it is religious, and it is for the benefit of the society, so it is social. But the first block is economic block. So we have to rethink about how can we emphasize and elaborate to all our communities that when we talk about Waqf, we are talking about an economic peace of mind for the future. The second aspect is that the Waqf itself, if we are reconceptualizing it, is working in the future tense by default. Waqf is not proposed to be used in the past, not even the current state. It is always for the future. When the Waqif comes and says, I want to put this Waqf, he states what it is going to do in the future. But this is not the only tense. We have 4 tenses for the Waqf. The first tense is future tense, so it is very much caring about the sustainability side, how it is going to be sustained. The second tense is the social welfare tense, so we have to be more elaborating the future needs of our communities to be serving it. The third tense is the creativity and innovation tense, and Waqf in this meaning versus Zakat, because Zakat is limited to the 8 services, and that's it. While the Waqf is open, we have more than maybe 2,500 kinds of Waqf, as it was listed by Maknaz in Kuwait. So we have plenty of ideas and plenty of opportunities to elaborate and to create new kinds of Waqf. New kind in the statement itself, new kind in the legal side, new kind in the type of Waqf, and new kind of the service of Waqf, and new kind of the beneficiaries of the Waqf. So it is plenty of opportunities to re-innovate ideas about Waqf, and this needs plenty of workshops with youth, because youth are ready to give ideas and to generate ideas. Even though sometimes we don't care about their ideas, we consider it primitive, but at the end we find that their ideas were filled with innovation and creativity. The fourth tense is the transparency and governance and law compliance, because we need our Waqfs to be safe for the future, not only sustainable for their continuity of business from themselves, and also safe from this legal side, not to be hit on their backs. The fifth tense, and this is very important for the future, is the job generating and professional cities ideas that we can provide for the future. If you look at our past in the Ottoman period, you find that Ma'mar Sinan introduced a new concept of Waqf, which is the complex, Kulliyasi. The complex was a community of Waqf-oriented mini city that has a part for the commercial side, a part for the learning and education, the part for the ibadah, masjid and other, a part for the community recreational side, a part for the say hospital or NGOs and all this. We need to reinvent this concept in our future projects to be able to generate more future jobs for our communities, and at the same time to get them linked to each other, because each small community like this, all people in this community consider themselves one community, and they care about their community to make it more successful and more progressive. So with all this in mind, I do assure that some of our brothers in Tanzania and in other countries that they provided very, very nice backtrack presentations about the history and the current. They can consider also continuing into progress in the future with new ideas and with taking these ideas into consideration, inshallah, and jazakumullah khairan.
Jazakallah khairan, Professor Zaidan. We always appreciate your inputs and so forth. It's always very refreshing, and you know, I like the kind of futuristic thinking that you have, and I hope that we can all imbibe that kind of futuristic thinking in the Waqf, because I really feel that in fact, right from the outset, when the Waqf was established in Medina, that the Prophet ﷺ already had, he already was a visionary thinker, and he was already thinking well beyond the current times, because
Right.
Waqf is always long term. So Jazakallah khairan for that, Professor Zaidan and Professor Yusuf Dadu. There is one question here for Zafar, and I think this comes from Dr. Sami Salahat, who's also with us, and thanks to him for organizing this platform. He wants to know whether there are other Waqfs in South Africa. We're not talking only about Awqaf South Africa, we're talking about many other Waqfs. Are there any figures and numbers? Do we know about other Waqfs in the country? I think you did mention a few of them. Maybe you can just remind us about it.
Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Gee, I did mention it's unknown the actual number of Waqfs or Waqf or private Awqafs or Waqfs are unknown in South Africa. There isn't a register or any organization or anybody that collates all of that information. There are communities that create their own Waqfs. There are families that create their own Waqfs. Awqaf South Africa is the only community-based sovereign fund that harnesses the inputs from all community members as a single Waqf organization. And so we have figures and we know what we collect and where we invest and what we do. But there are many others in South Africa. Some of them are very well established. I mentioned some go back to 1890, and they still exist still today as very, very successful Waqfs right in the center of Durban, and very, very large property with large incomes and very sustainable. There's a very large work of the Waterfall Islamic Institute, which nobody really knows what it's worth, but it could be in the billions of rands in terms of what it owns. It's a particular family Waqf, and it's hard to know exactly what it's worth. But there are any number of Awqaf in South Africa. I hope that answers the question, Zainu.
Okay, Jazakallah. Actually, maybe if you allow me to, I'm just thinking aloud, this waterfall city, maybe at some point, we could just discuss this particular Waqf in South Africa, this Waterfall Islamic Institute. And I'm sure a lot of the countries around South Africa, Zimbabwe, Malawi, Mozambique, know about Waterfall Islamic Institute because they were producing many Qurans They have a Quran printing press. It is in the past few years, and as Zafar has said, it has probably become the largest waqf in Africa. I think it could beat just one building there that I saw the other day. It's one of the big 5 auditing firms, Deloitte, over 1 billion rands, just one building. So it is phenomenal. The area is between Johannesburg city and Pretoria city. So between the two cities, this particular area has just become, by the grace of Allah, a haven for development. And what they're now doing is they're creating a new city out of that waqf property. It was actually farmland. So, but I don't want to delve into it. I'm sure that at some point we would be able to get, a few years ago, I actually went to visit them. And at that time, these developments were not taking place. But what they did tell me was they support 1,000 madrasas for 1,000 madrasas. Each madrasa has 100 children, and they employ one teacher per madrasa. So they employ 1,000 teachers for 100,000 children. So, but that was just a long time ago. It was probably, I would say, maybe 10 to 15 years ago when I actually went to talk to them about Awqaf South Africa. But now, I myself have been doing a bit of research about this particular waqf. It's a very private waqf, very, very closely kept by the family members. So, there isn't much public information about it. In fact, I was told somebody, and Professor Dadu, Mrs. Zuleika Mayet, this Maulana Ibrahim Mia told me that, this lady had asked him, why don't we write up a history of this Waterfall Islamic Institute? So his reply was, well, the history is being recorded all the time. So we don't need to write the history again. And what he meant was the angels that are sitting here, and Allah is writing the history of this place. So that's the extent of the recording of that particular waqf. Anyway, I don't think we have much more time and more questions, but just would like to thank all of you for participating and attending and making your presentations, preparing for this. I know we had, yes?
Please, I have got some suggestions here.
Okay.
Number one, from what we have heard, it shows that it's imperative now for all of our countries to have a Waqf national body. This will help us to collect information. The so-called unknown about Waqf should be removed. And we shall organize to remove our weaknesses. We have to have a central Sharia board for Waqf for each country so that we can have Sharia standards as well. Because we have common history with common problems, common challenges, we need now to have for a national. But not only for a national, for a region now. I'm suggesting we should have a regional Waqf body, which will enable cooperation from various countries in East and Central Africa, sharing the knowledges and moving to make that Waqf should be, as Dr. Zaidan was speaking there, the Waqf should be for religious, social, and economic benefits, to unlock these fixed assets and use technology. I was in Turkey in 2019. I found what Dr. Zaidan was saying, that for 500 years, the Kesh Waqf, which was organized by the Ottoman Empire, is the one saving the Masjid Aqsa. Really, because that is nobody can touch it. It was Kesh Waqf. Now, if we can have this thinking And forming these organizations, I'm suggesting we can help to, alleviate most of the problem we are having and make the work a major thrust for our social and economic development for our community. This is my humble suggestions.
Yeah.
They can be considered.
No, Jazakallah khair. And I hope that, from the comments that were given by Professor Zaidan, by Professor Dadu, and when we looked at all the challenges, then certainly there's scope for working together. I think there's no doubt about that. And that's one of the reasons that I think these fora are created, these webinars by Dr. Sami Salahat and the International Islamic Waqf Institution. I think that the idea is also that this World Awqaf Forum was created so that especially Muslim minorities can actually speed up and help them to organize themselves much better. Of course, we've been doing our little bit from here, from South Africa, but it really needs our big brothers from the established Muslim communities and countries where they have much more resources, and they could literally help us with a lot of the work, the administration, the technology. And by the way, there are Waqf standards. Waqf standards are being established. We were part of a committee in Indonesia that created Waqf core principles and standards and risk management standards. I think one of you mentioned the IOFI standards on Waqf. So you have that as well. You receive our notices on the corporate governance that we have seminars. In fact, one is going to be held on the 27th of February on corporate governance, on succession planning, on strategic management. So that's an ongoing thing. And, Zoom has made it so much easier for us to communicate with each other. So inshallah, your points of collaboration are well taken, and hopefully we can establish this body. Obviously, it needs resources, it needs people to actually run it. But I hope that somewhere along the line, some of the bigger brothers are listening to all of us, and they will also come to help us to establish a lot of the work that is being done in these countries by these Muslim minorities are really due to their own efforts and due to their own resilience and efforts and energies that they have put in, from the time that they have settled into these countries and so forth. So what you see, like in Tanzania, thousands of mosques, and South Africa also probably, I think at last count we said there may be over 1,000 or 1,500 masajid, musallas, or smaller musallas and what we also call as Jamaat khanas, So inshallah, we need more people, we need more volunteers, we need to educate more people, we need to we've now created a training manual, inshallah, which is almost like 90% done, and hopefully people will be able to we could give a live training on that. Although we have this Waqf Academy that's there already, it's been running for a few years now, online training program. But we've now done a short course on Waqf and basically training volunteers and training people, because a lot of us mentioned that our ulama are not really propagating this section. My conclusion about it is that the ulama understand the fiqh, they understand the rules and regulations, but they don't understand the developmental and civilizational role of Awqaf. That is the problem. So you may get people to talk about the hadith on Awqaf and what the Prophet ﷺ said and the rules and regulations that apply, but mobilizing and looking at the future of community development and civilization, I don't think that many of, there may be I'm not saying, I'm not generalizing, but I think that by and large, we've been really struggling for the past 20 years to get ulama to actually, and we've even had training programs for them. But ultimately, there are a few of them that really are very, very passionate about the Waqf system, and they see the need for developing the Waqf sector, and they are there to help us, but I think we really need more people, and now we are saying that we need ordinary people as well, because it's ordinary people that make waqfs. They can talk to their friends, their families, their colleagues at work. They are professionals. So I don't think we should leave it to any single group of people to actually do the propagation. I think every single one of us, and high school children and university students, we really need to go broad on exposure. But I think we need to end there. We have had a very interesting session. Jazakallah khairan.
Can we, Brother Zainul, can we take a photo for all attendants, and with a smile, please? No angry face, please.
Okay.
Yes. 1 second, please. 1 second. Keep your smile. Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, Barakallahu Feek. I will ask Professor Dadu to give us close this meeting with a dua.
الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا وأنت خير الراحمين. بفضل سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله.
Jazakallah khairan, barakallahu feek.
Jazakumullah khair. Thank you all of you.
Barakallah.
Jazakumullah khair. Shukran, Brother Zainul.
Okay, Jazakallah khairan. And
Shukran.
apologies for any mishappenings and so forth, but it was really a wonderful webinar.
Yes.
Alhamdulillah.
Yes.
Alhamdulillah. May Allah bless you all of you.
That's Dr. Sami Salahat.
Thank you, brother. Thank you all of you. Jazakumullah khair.
Barakallahu feek.
Thank you,
Assalamu alaikum.
Brother Zainul. Jazakumullah
Brother
khair.
Faisal, I need your number, please. Your number, Brother Faisal. Can get it from Brother Zainul, John.
Yeah, you've got it on the group, on the WhatsApp group.
Oh, okay.
I'll send it to you on WhatsApp, brother. I'll send it to you, inshallah.
Inshallah. Barakallah.
Okay.